So this joint is a Mortise Tenon, slightly different from your half laps, and the reason being is this. So for example, your halving joint is everything's divided by half. With a Mortise Tenon, you have to create a hole in the top piece, which is called your mortise, and then you have to create a tenon, which is like a stub that goes into that hole. The only difference with this is the fact that everything is divided by 3. So whereas a halving joint is divided by 2, the mortise joints, everything divided by 3. So we'll start with 30 millimeters in by 30 millimeters down, and that's our start point. We create a faint line across the top, and we bring the line down. Then what we do is we'll measure 150 millimeters, and the width of our joint is 44. We'll come down 44. We'll then add our faint lines in and do the top section of our joint there. Then what we need to do is find halfway, which is 75 millimeters, and then we need to put our rule onto 22, which again is halfway of 44. So we put it on the 0, and we'll also put it on the 44 millimeter mark. We then come down our 150 millimeters for the end of our joint, and we fill this box in. We don't fill in our center line because that's just an indicator of where our center is. And I'll just transfer a line across there. There's our first part of our joint, which is the front elevation. What we need to do next is come across 40 millimeters. That just shows the difference between the side elevation and the front. And then we'll put a vertical line down. We then need to add in the width of our joint, which is 32 millimeters, and we'll put the vertical line down again and finish that box. The only problem, the only difference now is we need to divide this section by 32. So 32 millimeters divided by 3 is 10.66 recurring. So that's not going to work out for our chisel size. So what we need to do is, even though we'd ideally like to put it into 3 equal parts, sometimes you can't do that. So you have to work to the nearest chisel size. So a chisel size is either 10 mil or 12 millimeters. For this, I think what we're going to do is put it at 12 millimeters chisel size, which leaves us with 10 millimeters short cheeks on either side. So what we need to do there is come in 10 millimeters, and we'll come in 10 millimeters, and we'll create 2 little marks. This now needs to be dashed lines coming down, because that shows the joint going through, but again it's not on the face of this side elevation. Once we've done that, we'll find our pivot point for our 45 degrees, which is coming down off the top and across off the bottom, and there is our pivot point. We then put in our 45 degree line so we can transfer all our vertical lines down, and as soon as they cross this 45 degree mark, we can then transfer them all across this way. So we'll start from the outer edge this time. We'll come down on our tenon, down on the other cheek of our tenon and the end of our joint. There. All 4 meet that side. Now we need to do our horizontal lines across. Nice and faint. They don't have to be very distinguished at the moment, because you'll put that in at a later date or in a few minutes. So there's our 4 lines that we've brought off our 45. Next, what we need to do is all our vertical lines of our front elevation is bring them down. So we'll do our 2 outer edges first, and then our inside edges are only going to be in the center, between the center 2 lines there, like that. So once we've done that, on our front elevation we've got a solid line there, and we have 2 solid lines there. So what we need to do is indicate that one of these lines, or 2 of these lines in this case, are dashed lines. So where our tenon goes up and in to our mortise, the 2 vertical lines on this piece are dashed lines now. So I'll just rub those out slightly, so when we put them into pen, they'll look a bit more clearer. So we'll do pen first now and finish up our joint, just to show you. Dashed lines coming down there. Dashed lines coming down there. There's the end of our joint. Side elevation. There's our dashed lines at 12 millimeters. And that's 12 millimeters from the center. So when we're working with our 12 millimeter mortise chisel, our mortise chisel will fit in that gap, and we can cut those cheeks off afterwards. Now we'll put in our horizontal lines. So we do our top line and our top line there. Our shoulder lines are all solid in this case. And we'll do the bottoms of our joints. Then we'll do the outer edges of the plan elevation. And this shows then that where the mortise is situated on our top joint. And what I'll do for this one is I'll show the end grain of our tenon coming up through our mortise. And you can do it just like that. What we need to do next is our pivot line to show that we came down at 45 degrees. We'll strike a line down through it, and we'll do this in a dashed line just to show that it's visual. And all our lines coming down from this vertical section, as soon as they cross our 45 degrees, it will give us all our horizontal measurements for this way. There we go. Then what we need to do is our measurements. We'll put our measurements in now, and then we can add a little isometric drawing on this side, just showing our tenon to see what it looks like before it goes into the mortise. And then I'll just put my 150 in this section in here today, because we're going to do an isometric view. And just so happens my pen is starting to run out, which is great. Put our 150 in here, so that section there, and then we'll go 1, 2, 3, 4 lines there. And because usually we'll write a third in that section, but because we've gone to a chisel size, you can't write a third in there, so it'll be 10, 12, 10. This is 150. This is 44, 32, 32. So now we've done that joint, all our measurement lines are in. I'm just going to show you an isometric view in this section here, just of the tenon. So what we need to do is start a pivot point. We need to create a small point that we can start off, and we'll say it's there. And then you strike a line up at 30 degrees in one direction, and then we'll go 30 degrees in the opposite direction. This gives us our X and Y axes, but what we'll do is just do a vertical section up there, and our overall measurement then is 150 for that joint. So what we're going to do is just bring it down ever so slightly to there and to there. Just rub that section out. So we'll do our 30 degree lines off this point. 1, 2. So there's our 150 millimeters. Now what we need to do is find 44 millimeters going up this way, which is our thickness. And then we need to find 32 millimeters going up this direction. And when you're doing an isometric view and you've got a measurement, you always measure across the line rather than anywhere else. You put your rule on the line. So once we found those two lines on those angles, we then project our line up, and we'll do the same for that one there. Then, as you can see now, we're starting to create a box. Because we've come 150 millimeters up, we can then go 30 degrees off either one, off this point, and the same for this point here. And because they've interjected to these, we can then strike a line off that one, and we can strike a line off that one, and we've now created our full block of timber, but we need to take out our tenon. out of this job. So how we do that is we'll come down 44 millimeters, which is the width of this joint here. So I'll measure down 44, and then we'll also do our shoulders off there. So 1, and we can rub a few lines out at a later date, that's fine. 2, so that's the depth of the top joint. And then because we've already done our orthographic, all our measurements of our orthographic view can be projected over to this. So along this section here will be our 10, 12, 10. So we'll place our rule already on there. We'll come in 10, make a mark, and we'll come in 10 and make a mark. Once we've got that, we create our vertical lines going up. And again, we can rub out some stuff in a second. We're just putting it all in as one joint for now. And then off there, we'll go 30 degrees. And off there, we'll go 30 degrees. So we're starting to see that joint for what it is. This section would be the waist, and that outer section would also be the waist. So once that section is out of there, we need to bring these ones down as well. That one goes up, we'll flip it around one more time, and that comes down. So what I'll do is, because we do your construction lines can be quite faint. So if they're very, very faint, you can leave them in, but you don't have to if you don't want to. What I'll do, I'll just rub them out slightly, and then I'll go over this in pen just to show you what the joint actually looks like. Again, you wouldn't use the 45 by 45 set square for this. All isometric views are done at 30 degrees. So I'll only take my pen up to that shoulder line now. And again, you could do this in, you don't have to do it in pen, because you can just do it in pencil if you wanted, and rub out your lines, and then make your finished lines a bit more distinguished. And there you have an isometric view. All we need to do now is put this last little shoulder line in, which you can see the front of it, but it would naturally disappear behind the joint. So again, you can put your grain direction in if you wanted, just to make it look nice and neat. Again, all that grain direction would be the same because it's out of the same piece of timber. So that gives us 44 millimeters in this direction, 32 in that direction, and it shows us the tenon that is going up into that mortise there. Thank you very much.